Hello, my Richies, and welcome back to another episode of the Make Life Rich Movement podcast. My name is Sarah. I'm your host. And in today's episode, we are discussing the gift in the offense. How do we deal with others' poor behavior and the way that it reflects on ourselves or our lives? And what can we do about finding a way to find a lesson within everything? I have had a couple interactions over the last few weeks that have really led me to not only be offended by people's behavior, but to be hurt. And although we are entirely in charge and responsible for the way we react to others, it's not to denote that we can be hurt, and we can be hurt by people that aren't really aware that they're hurting others. And if you are like me, someone who's very emotionally intelligent, very emotionally aware, it's pretty easy to see through the lies or the disassociations or the lack of reality you can see this person being in that's kind of causing you this issue, this trouble. And I had to find a way to really get to the bottom of this because I was feeling so bothered. And, this can happen in your professional life, your personal life, with acquaintances, random strangers. And I had an occasion where, I was interacting with a person that I was working with and just really being absolutely rubbed the wrong way by their demeanor, the way they would speak to me, what they were assuming I would do for them, which wasn't included in what we had discussed doing for like this project that they'd asked me to help them with. And I think there was just a number of moments where I was made very aware that I took this project for the wrong reasons. Just saying, like, okay, this will be great money, easy project, get it in, get it done. And, I was checked on that assumption because that assumption was not real. It was not real at all. It ended up being a bit of a nightmare, to be quite honest. And, because it was business, there were just moments where until I was able to end with them a few weeks ago, there was just this time frame of really feeling absolute angst, anxiety, depression over having to deal with this person. And I knew that I needed to get to a place where I could transform this anxiety and this fear and this pain of interacting with this person and kind of turn it into something that allows me to get deeper awareness on not only myself, but on the human condition, the situations we find ourselves in. And I think there was definitely, sorry guys, she's not feeling so good, my little Sophie. But there was a moment where I had an aha kind of epiphany. And I said, what if every difficult person in our life was actually a teacher, not only sent to help us, but to be an example of God's like perfect intentions? Like, I can be upset of the way this person is causing me problems, causing me issues, likely through no realization of their own that this is happening. And I can be mad about it. I can want to, remove them from my life, remove myself from the situation. But all that's doing is removing me from the problem rather than getting me through it. And kind of being able to look at this scenario and say, like, I've been in a place before where I treated people badly. I wasn't happy with my life. I was in bad relationships. I wasn't feeling settled or secure. And I took those things out on others. And I absolutely projected all of these fears and insecurities from myself onto others. But there came a moment in 2010 where I started my growth journey and really realized, like, no one's coming to save me. This life is mine and mine alone. I took my first breath. I'll take my last breath by myself. And every moment in between is one that I need to reckon with and one that I need to come to grips with and find the beauty in and find the lesson in at every second and every turn. And having this epiphany of, like, I saw this person, I interacted with them in public, I could see how uncomfortable they were. And I thought, you know what, this is silly. I'm just going to melt them like butter with kindness and sweetness and show them that there's no weirdness here. There's no harm, no foul. There's no weird ending. Like, we're just done the project. We're not working together anymore. And, I got to see in having this conversation with them, the layers of insecurity peeling back, the layers of fear peeling back, the layers of fear of judgment peeling away. And then getting to see at the heart of it what it really was, which was insecurities about their self-worth, which led them to have judgment and anxiety and jealousy about others and everyone around them. And it really made for a big lesson for me to realize, like, this person and the way they're behaving, this is their life's journey. And hopefully the interaction that we had together, we're spur them enough into a direction to go, I never want to treat anyone like that again. I want to make sure that the next time I work with someone in some capacity, I'm able to bring my full and whole self to the game here and work on healing rather than projecting and spewing all of my stuff onto other people, especially people I'm paying. Hopefully the interaction of them not treating me so well is one that will lead them to be able to have this like aha moment of their own. And that could be God's ultimate journey for them. I think there is a lot to be said about the nature of offense and being offended and being, feeling personally afflicted by someone's behaviors, either around you or towards you. And, taking offense to something is you just utilizing a choice to interpret someone's actions as personal against you, rather than giving yourself the option to look at them and say, like, what happened to you to make you this way? Or, this literally has nothing to do with me and everything to do with you. And I'm so sorry you're in this place. And I hope things get better for you shortly. And these aren't things you need to say to them. These can be things that you're simply just feeling in your heart to be able to remove yourself from the emotional attachment of being concerned with their issues of their actions coming towards you and making you feel as though you need to take offense or take it personally. Feeling as though we are being offended takes, not only does it create a separation between ourselves and others, it absolutely begins to put us into a victim mentality that is not helpful for anyone in any kind of scenario at all. And instead of looking at yourself as a victim when others offend you, I want to encourage you to introduce a perspective shift. And that would be that everyone is on their own unique journey in their own unique time, working on their own spiritual goals that they may or may not be aware of. And if you find yourself in a position or in a place where you're having to deal with someone that is on a journey and you can tell they're not in their highest form of self yet, then you have to have the grace and find the ability to find grace within yourself for them to just kind of separate yourself and be like, don't like how you're treating me. I'm not going to take it personally. However, I am going to put boundaries in place and remove myself from this scenario because you're not doing this to me all day. I think there's also something in registering when someone triggers you in the form of triggering your offense. Think of someone that triggers you regularly. What if, when in that position of being triggered by them, you inserted the thought that nothing that they're doing has to do anything with you, and it has everything to do with their inner landscape, their inner turmoil, their inner child work that's needed, the lack of shadow work they haven't worked on yet, the truth they need to open within themselves, the spiritual journey they need to go on, the understanding that they and they alone are in charge of their life and that there are no victims. There was a really big awakening for me in being able to interpret this immediately within these scenarios that I find myself in and we all find ourselves in throughout life. But there was a little bit of an aha moment for me recently as well in just getting to know God better, reading the Bible, getting to know Jesus. There are so many times in which we are very quick to protect ourselves and defend ourselves first when we're not in periods of violence or physical danger, rather than taking a moment to step back and say, who hurt this person? Why is this person hurting? How can I set aside myself, tap into my higher self right now that can have the resolve and the strength and the grace to deal with this person in this bad state currently? How can I pray for them? How can I wish them well? How can I send them good vibes to help them get to the other side of this journey? Because if you know someone that's in this space and if they regularly act this way, they live in a literal prison of their own making. It is hell on earth for them. They are so unhappy. And often they themselves are triggered by people that are healing in their life or the people that they have to deal with. And if you find yourself feeling like you need to have a deeper answer than like, oh, it's just their journey, well, then let's explore the concept that every soul has and will learn exactly what it needs to learn through different mediums, experiences, situations, etc. And God is often going to bring us challenges in our relationships as almost customized learning for what opportunities we need to make a big change in our life. And if you believe in a higher power, kind of having everything mapped out for you, then you know that like we can think we have control over things, but in reality we don't. And taking offense to someone's actions in a way is a bit of a control issue. There is modicon of not being able to completely contain and protect your energy, the interactions you have with others, how your emotions are registering that day because of interactions with others. We can often find ourselves, if you are a person working on control like I am, in a place where we want to fix the situation. We want to fix the other person. We want to make sure that this isn't going to happen to us again. But what if in that moment, you're not only ignoring the fact that they're on a spiritual journey, that they need this to happen, they need to behave this way to others so that they can get to the other side, but you also need this interaction for your own spiritual journey and your own soul growth with God behind the wheel. My type A little self really doesn't like this answer, and it feels like the right one in my soul because it upsets me. And it lets me know that, man, we can think we've done so much work, but there's always more to do. And the beauty of embracing everything in life as an opportunity and a lesson is a really beautiful way to take away a lot of the anguish and the upset and the dread of like, oh my God, one lesson after another. It's like, well, we could look at it as, wow, I get to not only expand my horizons of what I know today, I get to expand the horizons of who I know myself to be alongside these understandings and these experiences and these situations and these aha moments and these downloads from God and the universe that are giving me the ability to step back and say, I'm not going to take this personally. In fact, I'm going to send good vibes to this person. I'm going to pray for them. I'm going to send them light. I want them to know that they are loved. And even though they just chewed me out for nothing that was my fault, I want them to know that it's okay and I forgive them and I hope they have a better day. Something as simple as saying, it's okay, I forgive you, I hope you have a good day, can really stop someone in their tracks that is bringing offensive behavior to your front doorstep, to your personhood, your space. And it can shake them up to be like, wait, why aren't you yelling at me? Because most often they're going to want a reaction. They're going to want some type of back so that they can expel more energy rather than doing it in a healthy way, which would be them taking a look at why they're so upset at what they're dealing with and why they feel the need to push it on you, which is totally irresponsible in all regards. Outside of being a child, there are very little excuses for taking out your bad vibes, your anxiety, your scarcity mindset, your anger on others rather than looking internally and dealing with it in a way that's going to allow you to move past this and not behave that way again with others. So when we are looking at what is the like God-given curriculum we can try to follow here that's going to help us to be able to interact with those that are almost like a sore on our bum at times. Now, we want to really take a look at the concept that, again, each soul is learning what it needs to learn. We're getting these customized learning opportunities. We're sharing wisdom from these different spiritual interactions and downloads that we've had with each other about seeing difficult people as teachers rather than as punishment. At times, I will find myself, if I'm really having difficulty with someone, doing a bit of a guided visualization, imagining the person who has offended me as a soul on their own path, facing their own struggles, going through their own lessons by themselves. By themselves. And once you've been through this journey and you've started going on the path of working your way to righteousness and becoming a better person and developing who you are with personal growth, there will come a moment where your empathy will supersede your need for offense. Your empathy to be able to look at others that are not doing well and are in pain and are taking out on others. You'll be able to look at them and say, this person's in pain, this person is suffering, and they're suffering because they are alone in this feeling, in this thought, in this life they're experiencing. And although I don't want you to like become Captain Save-A-Ho overnight and be jumping in to help everyone here and there, you can just make it a practice within your life to not add to their self-inflicted strife by bringing your offense to the interaction within which they offended you. It can sound like you're losing. That was something big for me. It's like, well, who's going to tell them? Well, when are they going to know they're wrong and that they did this to me? Maybe never. Maybe in heaven, maybe on their deathbed, maybe at in their mid 50s when they have a crisis awakening and like they realize like, wow, I treated everyone in my life like shit. But for me, it was accepting and knowing that like me judging others is judging the journey that God gave them to hopefully learn the lessons that they need to learn. I am in no way, shape, or form in a position to be able to question God's journey for others. What I can question is how I react to the interpretation and the interaction between my journey that God gave me and others' journeys that God gave them. I know I'm like saying the same thing over and over, but it's such a big concept wrapped in so few words. And I think there's just so much to be said about adding empathy into this scenario to be able to see that, like, man, not only are people just so sorely in need of someone else to see them, to hear them, to feel them, but you may not even be in a position to be able to do that with that person immediately upon you recognizing yourself like, oh, this isn't about me, it's about them. Well, let me help them. You can only help them if they want help. You can only help them if they want to help themselves. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. That adage is like so annoying and so true. But I want to recap here what we can do to protect ourselves when we find ourselves in a position where someone else is offending us, and more than likely repeatedly, because it's annoying you enough that you must have frequent interactions with them and it doesn't seem like they're changing. And you yourself need to change if you cannot remove them from your life or place boundaries into the scenario that are going to protect you and keep you from having to keep taking this onslaught of abuse. But we want to get into the habit of asking, what is this interaction teaching me? Because I refuse to get triggered and take this personally. Boundaries, self-respect, patience, compassion, non-judgment, and acceptance, emotional regulation. These are all tips that we can have in our little tool bag that are going to help us to work with and be alongside others, or live with others, or interact with others that do continually spew their internal non-well-being onto others via uncomfortable, non-healthy, sometimes non-safe interactions, rather than looking internally and getting to the little seed of all of that upset inside of them. Inner child work, big place to start, guys. Getting to know God, second great place to start. So in practicing non-offense, here's what I had to start doing, because it was something that was surrounding me at one point a few years ago, and I felt like I was going crazy. I literally had to give myself little rituals to work through this rather than spazzing on them, which was not something I was comfortable with, or being in a space where I was like, okay, you know what? Like, this is not working. So I need to come up with a different way to go about dealing with this, because I know they're not going to change. Nothing is going to change on their end. Therefore, I need to change. So I created the pause practice. I created a space between their triggering me with their terrible behavior and me feeling like I needed to react. So giving myself space. I would then take a recount of my feelings. What am I feeling right now? I'm feeling offended. I'm feeling betrayed. I'm feeling like they don't respect me. I'm feeling like I'm not being included in a way that is showing, any kind of friendship or care for me. And then in that, trying to find the compassionate practice after you've recognized what feelings are hurt in you, to then try to recognize what feelings are hurt in them. We want to start laying down the empathy early into the equation after you've paused. You've had a moment to assess how you're feeling, why you're feeling the way you are. What about what they just said or did to you has triggered you? And then thinking about what inside of them has led them to treat me this way. So you can find room for empathy to be able to not only move away from the person they're behaving in that moment, but also to set yourself up for success in the future by just being slightly less detached. Every time you do this, every time you set down this boundary within yourself to not feel offended, you are putting into motion a beautiful rewiring of the relationship or the interaction that you will have with this person in the future, whether or not they are cognizant of that. This will be something that you have given yourself not only the autonomy to do, but the ability to implement and keep tweaking and making stronger 1% every time you do it. After that compassion project, and sometimes it does feel like a project, because I sometimes really have to talk myself through and say, well, I know that they've got this going on. I know that in their youth they had this happen and they never dealt with it. I know that, they get really triggered when they're speaking with, their assistants because of X, Y, Z, because someone betrayed them, and blah, 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 blah. And then the boundary setting, but with love or care or compassion, and saying, like, I can honor your journey that God has put you on with all the trappings that come with it, while also honoring my needs and making sure that I'm in a safe place to be able to continue rather to interact with you with sympathy and grace, with the feeling and the notion of, you aren't doing this to me, you feel this way, which I am so sorry for you, And I want to try to do my very best to not become another cog in your wheel of misery or upset to keep you going down this road. Now, if you feel like you need a little bit of a physical thing to attach to this, if you find yourself triggered, breathing through the trigger is big. Allowing the emotion to move through you without attaching to it and adding more and more fuel and cortisol and upset and physical body reactions. We don't need all that. What we need is right up here, and we know what we need to do. And it's not get excited or upset or get excitable physically about something that someone doesn't likely even know they cognizantly did to you. And if they did it to you on purpose, then that's something totally separate. And that's something where you need to inflict strong physical boundaries so that you're not being in like within proximity for them to continue to do this to you willy-nilly if they're not going to do the work. We're not a doormat, right? We are going to use our recognition and our intellect to decipher who is a safe person to work through this with and who is someone I need to remove completely from my life because they are abusive, they are unloving, they are unkind, and they do so knowingly and willingly. Like, ew, bye. That's demon energy. We want nothing to do with that. Now, when you allow the non-offense to come into your heart and not go off the rails with feeling offended, it can transform not only you, but your relationships. As I said, you're getting that 1% muscle growth a day. It's going to make it easier and easier and easier for just it to be your autonomic response when you're interacting with people that are difficult. But it is really going to create a ripple effect of your personal practice, and that's going to ripple out through your community. You're going to find people recognizing you're behaving a little differently. You're behaving with a little bit more self-worth and self-value at the forefront. You are taking account for your triggers and your emotional situations that you know that you can work yourself through rather than reacting to others. And it's going to cause them to treat you differently. And if it doesn't, they're probably a person you need to remove from your life as well. Maybe after having a conversation and give them one final little kick in the pants. But if not, remove yourself, please. Like, we're way past that. It's 2025. So if I'm going to give you a closing reflection, it would be this. How might your life transform if you saw every offense as a gift? And some homework for you. This week, when you feel offended, I want you to pause and ask, what is this teaching me about myself? What is this interaction with this other person showing me about myself that I can and must work on so that I no longer find myself in this place? I really want to thank you for not only taking the time to listen to this episode, but I want to thank you for taking the time to do this work in your life. This is absolutely the kind of work that will ebb and flow into every corner of your community, every corner of your world. And with that butterfly effect, we can hope that it keeps rippling and affecting others for eons and eons ahead, because changing the way you interact with others can help to show them an example or show them the light of their behavior so that they can get to the root of it and fix it just as you are in the interaction of just being like, I don't want that energy, keep it away from me. Encourage you to keep looking into this deep inner work. It's absolutely amazing that you're doing this. I want to encourage you to listen to some past episodes. The last 20 at least have been amazing for inner child work, reparenting. We have a ton of guided visualizations that will help you with every step of this, as well as an episode on ways to banish negativity from your life and a ton of other beginning self-growth practices that you can put into your life and in your day-to-day experiences that are going to help you to evolve emotionally, spiritually, and physically. My Richies, it has been an absolute pleasure to have your time and attention. As always, I am so thankful for your peepers and your ears tuning in 3 times a week. And as always, make life rich.